What's up, y'all? Forgive my phlegm in my throat. Um, I just got a question from someone who listened to my podcast with Brene Brown, and they touched on something that I want to expound upon because I think they are onto a hot take that I want us all to take away with. So, their name is Veronica, and they sent me this following email. They said, "Hi, Sonia. I listened to your episode with Brene Brown today. Incredible as ever. Thanks. And I have a question. I'm thinking about a lot of white people's affront and inability to agree with the declaration that Black Lives Matter and the whole BLM movement in general. Is this because white people haven't been able to find their own intrinsic worth? Because they tie their value to their whiteness and the power of whiteness, it is entirely dependent on the latter." So Black people who would be lower down on the latter, saying BLM has essentially opted out of the latter, and that seems so impossible to white people to opt out of the system that they are personally enraged by it, because they haven't yet realized that the latter harms them too, that they too can opt out of the latter, and in doing so recognize the intrinsic worth of all human life, no matter where the latter would put people. Because if you recognize you're intrinsically worthy, then you don't need the latter. You don't need the power of whiteness. And then, of course, all human beings become worthy and matter. Exactly. I love it when people get it, when it clicks. And I could hear in this email that it clicked. Because the challenge for someone who externalizes their validity, externalizes their enoughness, is that when someone proposes that their identity is innately worthy in a structure, the latter, that proposes that identity is not, and that your value as a human being is that you are actually above that person. So when that person says, so in the ladder of social hierarchy, this society says white bodies are more valuable than Black bodies. So when Black bodies dare to say our lives matter, what it does is for someone who is like, but if your life matters, then first of all, it makes people they try to orient based on the latter, because that's the only thing they understand, right? So the first place to enter that conversation is, well, if your life matters, then it must mean mine doesn't, right? Because in the latter, if you're oriented in this ladder of social hierarchy, for someone to matter must be in relationship to someone else's mattering. That it cannot exist just as a truth, that it must be situated, that truth must be situated on the ladder of social hierarchy. So when Black people say my life matters, white people who struggle with that understanding are struggling with their own experience of comparison, and then the ways in which, well, if Black lives matter, but I'm the highest identity on the rung, because we know that, right? Because whether or not you identify it as the ladder inside of yourself, whether or not you understand it as social hierarchy, whether or not you want to let it in consciously, we know it because we orient our lives around it. So when people say Black lives matter, folks who have identified their worthiness through their whiteness and the positionality that their whiteness gives them, that's the key piece, right? Because I can hear someone's argument saying, well, but Black people are saying that their lives, but Black people are saying that their lives matter irrespective of anyone else's opinion about it. They matter irrespective of the latter. And white people who identify with their whiteness as a positionality of power hear that as, if their lives matter, they must be positing that their lives matter more than mine, because I only understand the world through this system of hierarchy. And that if their lives matter, then my life must not, because in this externalized system, they have one-upped me. Again, it all requires an investment in the system of bodily hierarchy, the system that identifies ourselves as better than or less than others. And when we divest from this, so because white people's identity with whiteness only comes from a positionality of power, white people aren't like, I love my whiteness. I love the culture of whiteness. I've never heard a white person once say, I really love the culture of whiteness. I asked on Facebook one time, what is white culture? And white people could not give me one good thing. They could name all of the oppressions. They could name appropriation. They could name nuclear families. They could name these really rigid, stifling things, but they could not name white culture as with a positive attribute. And so whiteness is not an identity of positive cultural attribution. Whiteness is an identity of positional power that demands this hierarchy. And so if somebody posits that their life matters, then all of a sudden they have to understand that through the context of their positional power in a system of bodily hierarchy, and can only wrap their brains around it through that. Because whiteness unto itself is not offering anything. And the reason it isn't offering anything outside of positional power is because it isn't made of anything real. It's illusionary, right? Like, in order to reap the benefits of whiteness, those who identify as white have had to give up the forefronting of their cultural identities, which is why, you get, St. Patrick's Day is when Irish people in the United States, when we hear anything about that identity, or when we hear any, even in so much as there are like ethnic enclaves that have a bit of like the history of that community based mostly on food, because America will let you bring your food, but they won't let you bring your prayers. They won't let you bring your traditional clothing or songs. They won't let you bring your language. Those are the things that you actually have to get rid of in order to cash into whiteness, right? And so, because whiteness doesn't offer any value proposition that is about one's inherent sense of dignity and worth, it offers value propositions, but they're externalized. They're about what you can extract. They're about what you can take. They're about what you can power over. They are not about who you inherently are. They are not about your inherent divinity and power just because you were born as a person. And the white power movement is still about dominance. It's about externalized power over. It's still not about an internal power. It is still a power only born in whiteness, and whiteness as a function of dominance and violence and aggression throughout the world. And that when whiteness does not have those things attached to it, white supremacist movements, white power movements, find those things repulsive, right? They outside of domination and aggression, they are, that is how they define and understand whiteness, right? So, again, if someone proposes Black Lives Matter, blackness that has been historically maligned, that has been historically oppressed, that has been historically seen as subhuman, when those people propose that they are inherently valuable, inherently worthy, not over from a position of domination, not from a position of powering over, not from a position of being able to control and take, but just simply because we are, it short circuits the entire belief system of white supremacist delusion. It cannot stand on it. It doesn't understand it because it does not fit the world paradigm of white supremacist delusion. Because white supremacist delusion does not propose that anyone is inherently worthy. It only proposes that worthiness comes through domination and external power and gains. And so to hear this, so when you hear the resistance to Black Lives Matter, what you're hearing is a resistance to the entire system of social hierarchy upon which a person has fixed their sense of identity, worthiness, and enoughness. And yes, if white people could actually tap into their inherent enoughness, to their inherent divinity, their radical self-love, they'd be out here actually standing in the responsibility of dismantling white supremacist delusion. They wouldn't just be saying Black Lives Matter. They'd be working every day to undo the structures that ever made the world think that they didn't. Thanks for that, Veronica.